Hi, teachers. I'm so happy to see you all. I wish I could be there with you today, but I'm kind of excited about this opportunity to sort of flip the PD a little bit and set you up for some opportunities to think about your own teaching and reflect on what you've been doing and kind of some of the threads that we started last time. I know we didn't have a lot of time to think through those, and you may have tried some things in your classroom that we talked about last time, but probably you didn't have a chance to really do it deeply or do it more than once. And so we're going to kind of continue to think about those things. So for our time today, we're going to work through some stuff together. We're going to pause the video at different moments so that you can reflect and talk to one another. We're going to come back together and share in different ways. And then we're also going to spend some time planning. All right, so let's get started. So our goals are just what I just said. We're going to reground some of our work, reflect, and time to, my goal is that at the end of these 2 hours, you have a whole nother text set that you can use with your students with a plan about how and when you're going to implement that. And so I wanted to start by just taking a look and regrounding us with the Wordle that we created last time we were together. I know third grade teachers, some of you, and fourth grade teachers, some of you didn't get a chance to participate in this. And so just as a reminder, this was a Wordle based on what we noticed about our reading and writing standards. And when we looked at those standards, these were what we pulled out as the 3 most important words and really the 3 most important skills that we need for students, that we think are important for students. And so what we notice here is that cite evidence was really, really important. We talked about how our kids need to be working with texts and writing about texts. And we also noticed this idea of collaboration, so talking to each other. And we also pulled out this idea that the kids need to be reading texts that are not just written texts, so texts that are multimedia or written in different kinds of media. And so when we worked through our eating bugs text set, we really honed in on a lot of these. And so because that was kind of like our beginning stages of thinking around these topics, I want to come back to what we've done so far and what we've maybe tried or what we've been thinking about and spend some time reflecting. So as we're reflecting, I want us to take some time to really look at the performance-based tasks on AIR and for your grade level. So I'm going to ask you right now to go ahead and click on this link. That's going to take you to this folder. And you should see this come up. And in this folder, you see 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade writing performance tasks. So you're going to go ahead and, depending on your grade level, you're going to open this up. And I want to invite you to spend some time looking at one of the performance-based tasks that's been released from AIR. So I just grabbed these from the student practice test portal. I just screen grabbed it and lifted it away from there because sometimes we can get lost in the practice test, right? And what I'd like you to do is in your notes, go ahead and just make a 2-column chart. What students need to be able to do as readers and what they need to be able to do as writers. And on your own, go ahead and take a few minutes to really dig in and look at this task and what it's asking, knowing that if it says passage 1 for each of these tasks, students need to be reading at least 2 texts around this topic. Examine what they're being asked to do in the writing part, and really think carefully about the kinds of skills that students are going to need to bring to this experience. And once you have spent some time on your own, taking some notes and thinking about what you notice and really reflecting on what's being asked of students, go ahead and discuss your findings together. And in that Google Doc for your grade level, make a master list of the skills you're noticing. And as you make that master list, go ahead and once the list is made, work through these other tasks where you're sort of, or work through these other like thinking prompts where you're ranking the list and thinking about the skills that are sort of like the most important and thinking about the places where you see room for the most student growth. And the reason I I think it's important for us to think about this is that it's that backwards design model, right? If we know our students, this is one of the kinds of writings that our students need to do, then we want to make sure that we're doing the things that are going to really prepare them for success. Not because the test is the end all be all, but because it's one of the ways that they're going to be. So go ahead and set a timekeeper and give yourselves about 20 minutes to work through this part. All right, so now that you've spent some time reflecting on the performance-based task and really looking at the kind of writing that students will be asked to do, my guess is that as you looked at the skills, you came to similar conclusions as I did, which is that I noticed that students needed to be able to really live within this world of reading information standard, number one, where kids are being asked to refer to these details, really cite evidence, right, in different kinds of ways. And then depending on what kind of writing genre, whether it was an opinion piece or an informative, sort of more informative, maybe like more literary informative, you might have noticed that really too, students are being asked to introduce topics, to have multiple paragraphs, right? So they need to have reasons around their evidence, all those skills, right, that are really, really sophisticated, and that mean kids need lots of practice actually producing writing, right? So that they need lots of practice before they get to this point. And we just know that the way kids become better writers is they have lots of practice doing it, right? And one of the things that we know from our standards that students need to do is write about the text they're reading. All right, so with that in mind, that's the rationale for why I like to expose kids to multiple rounds of writing using text sets. And so I want us to spend some time planning a text set. And I right now want to do a little bit of a think aloud around how I planned the text set that we worked through together. So when you click on that sheet, you'll come to this Google Doc. It's just a organizer I created because what I noticed is that I couldn't find anything that was helping me create text sets. And so my colleague and I created this with the hopes that it could help other teachers do some of the things that we were working with. So this is an eating bugs text set. And so right now I'm just going to focus on that. So when I think about what my focus argument skill or my focus skill really was, and for that piece it was more of an opinion. So my focus opinion skill was that I wanted students to be able to cite evidence, develop a claim, and add some reasoning about their evidence. So those were the things that I knew I wanted students to be able to do. Here's the thing. We could teach all the standards, right? We could even look at standard about opinion and teach all of those bullet points within one text set. But then it doesn't become a mini unit. It becomes a maxi unit, right? And I know that kids won't have multiple exposures to the kind of practice that I want them to have. So I really try to keep my focus skills small. It doesn't mean that I don't talk about other things, but I like to think of it in terms of what Kate Roberts says. She talks about there's a difference between teaching something and covering something, right? So we might cover stuff because we mention it, but we're going to teach it and we're going to be really focused about a couple of things. And then for my content topic is just eating bugs. And when I think about possible search terms, I might have like advantages of eating bugs, right? Which also makes me think about, then I probably want to have some disadvantages. I might think about cultures that eat bugs, right? So just whatever kind of search terms help me find the kinds of text. And I know that for this grade level, 2 to 3 texts are a good number for me. And so that kind of helps me get started. And then here's where the real work happens. This is where I do some searching. And I come up with a list of possibilities because I don't necessarily just want to use the first 2 or 3 texts that I find. I want to have a place where I have like a mentor text cluster or a text set cluster so that I can come back to it if something works or it doesn't work or I need a different text, it's all going to be here. And so that I can make choices about the kinds of text that I'm going to use. So for example, that infographic from Scope is one of the first texts that I found. And I know that the genre is an infographic. And this column is really important because it goes back to that thing that we said the last time we were together about media. I want to make sure that my kids are reading different kinds of media, different kinds of texts. And then details, this was pretty pro bug eating, and it gave some general information, right? And then here is the other really important part as a teacher is that I want to make sure that my instruction is being really intentional. So I think about what are the strategies that I'm going to use within this text. And so the reading strategy we used here is that we coded the text and added to our note catcher. And then here's where I might write notes about text complexity or Lexile levels or ways I might differentiate. This is just a column where I can make notes to myself. So this one was pretty accessible to all levels of readers, right? Then the other text that I had was that I found and that I used with us was a text about eating bugs and culture. It was an article, right? And so the text details was that it told more background information and some statistics. And the reading strategy we used there were the VIP Post-it notes and then sharing. So that goes to that collaboration piece. And I might use a Newsela text to adjust Lexile levels. Now, one that I didn't use with us, but I have used in other grades, in other settings, is a text that says, eating bugs, not all it's cracked up to be. And this is more of an opinion, like editorial, an op-ed. And this takes a stance against bug eating, just saying it's not really that great. And when I've done this with students before, I like to practice, and it says I say, just a 2-column chart. And so those are 3 texts that I might use in my text set. And so then the next step is to really think about, like, how many days will this take? What will it look like, right? And so this is where I say, okay, we're going to look at the image and complete the see, think, wonder, which actually I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to add that image. It's my attention grabber. I'm going to add that up here. All right, and so I'm going to start to do like the day-to-day. So we're going to look at the image, see, think, wonder. We're going to do a gut reaction, writing. Remember how we did those layers of writing? And that's really going to be day 1. We're going to do a question blitz. We're going to make our note catcher. And then we're going to read the infographic, right? So I'm creating sort of like a rhythm. I'm going to commit myself to a timeline. I like for text sets to take no more than really 4 or 5 days. Usually they're around 3 or 4 days. And so in this space, you can really see how you might like start to map out how I'm going to use it, how students are going to be writing. And then because here we added this layer of writing. I believe that it's really important for kids to do the writing in short little bursts as they build stamina and fluency. And then these are just some review questions that help me kind of stay on track. Like, are there multiple genres? Are there multiple points of view? Because that's sometimes something that's important. I want to make sure that I'm giving a text that just gives sort of like an overview or like a background of whatever the information is. And then I really want to make sure that I have like a range and accessibility and in text types too, right? And then these are just other notes that you need to make to yourself. All right, so I want you to take some time and have an opportunity to build a text set. And I know some of you work in grade level groups and you love to share and you love to plan together, and I think that's amazing. I want to invite you to take this opportunity to actually plan your own text set on your own, because if the 4 of you each do your own text set, then you have 4 text sets, rather than all four of you working on one.